The most dangerous thing about the Tesla Cybertruck is not the pointy edges and corners. It's not the fact that it weighs over 3 tons and goes from 0 to 60 miles an hour faster than a Corvette. It's not even the way that reflections glare off the stainless steel and can blind people on the highway. No. The most dangerous thing about the Cybertruck is the way it makes other people around you on the road behave. Okay, I genuinely can't tell if the Cybertruck is good looking or not, and I'm being completely serious. Like, if you just check the comment section online, it's actually mostly negative. Most people are saying it looks horrible, looks like a refrigerator on wheels, it's a disaster of a design. But once you start living with this thing, you drive around with it, and you talk to people about it who have never heard of it, they're saying things like, this is crazy, this is like a movie prop, it's sci-fi, looks something alien. So there's a lot to it. Here, first of all, stainless steel and black plastic. That's mostly what you're working with here. And the front, I think it has a good angle, to be honest. I'm a sucker for a light bar, but the actual headlights are down here so they stay out of people's eyes. In general, it's like a square jawline, no curves, just angles. But the back, not so much. It's still technically a bar, yes, but it's a little bit dinkier in my opinion. And also just tons of black plastic in the back, really high tailgate. I'm getting like dump truck vibes from back here. I don't think I'm the only one. I don't think the back is its best angle, but if I had to narrow it down, I'm pretty sure the most iconic profile is the side. And the two elements of this truck that really stand out are this slope, these high shoulders, and then the pointy corners on the other side. See, most pickup trucks have basically this general shape. It's the traditional pickup truck look. And so we're not used to seeing this angle right here and this huge slope right here. It's unusual. It's weird. It's very visually interesting. So I've been living with the Cybertruck for about a month now, well over 1,500 miles. And you notice a couple things. First of all, people, whenever you go park somewhere, always want to come up to you and talk about it. Naturally, I've entertained a lot of these conversations because they're fun. And they usually say two things. One, you'd be surprised how many people have never heard of the Cybertruck. I know for us online people watching this video, you're like, how could anyone have not heard of the Tesla Cybertruck? But you'd be shocked. And two, most people just want to know, how much does that thing cost? And I got asked that so many times, eventually I just started having people guess. And 100% of the people who guessed were too high. People were guessing 250, 300K, 180K, 150K. They're all way over. But how could they know? They don't know what the rest of the truck is. They've just seen this thing they've never seen for the first time. And so I guess the conclusion is the looks are really distracting people from the rest of what makes the Cybertruck the Cybertruck. Okay, let's play a little game. I'm going to name a feature, and all you have to do is think about it for a second and think about if you believe it's overrated or underrated. And then I, someone who's been driving this truck, will tell you the real answer. So, first feature, steer-by-wire. I've seen a few good pieces cover what's actually happening here, talking about the complete physical disconnect between the steering wheel you're holding and the wheels that are moving under the truck. Instead, it's a bunch of sensors reacting to your input like a video game controller. But combined with the variable steering ratio and the four-wheel steering, this is the most nimble, agile feeling truck that I have ever driven. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. So I'm going underrated. It's one of those things where Tesla definitely didn't have to do this. Like, they've made their headlines already with the looks that could just be a Model 3 underneath, but they went through the extra measures and the extra engineering to ship a full steer-by-wire system and all the redundancies that come with making it safe. I believe they're the first ones to do this. But the variable steering ratio is really what gives it all of its utility. So at low speeds, the ability to turn really quickly gets dialed up. It's a much more responsive feeling steering wheel. So if I want to turn right here, I only have to give it, half a turn, quarter turn, and I'm fully maneuvering. The way you can pull into parking spots and make 90-degree turns and everything is a total game changer. But then at highway speeds, it softens that ratio a lot. So you have a little bit of steering input to sort of glide left and right between different lanes. It's much more subtle. You kind of need that. But then on top of that, throw in the four-wheel steering. So four-wheel steering is not new. Lots of vehicles have done it, but the amount of steer that you get from these rear wheels is pretty dramatic, to the point where you can look in the mirrors and see those wheels turning. And this can also be adjusted with software, but that really lets this huge truck basically pivot around a much smaller axis. The steering ratio now, I think, gives it the same steering circle as a Model S, but it feels really, really impressive just because of how big the actual vehicle is. It definitely takes some getting used to. You can't ignore that fact. But once you get used to it, you literally feel like when you go back to like an F-150 or any other truck where you have all this hand-over-hand steering to do the K-turns, that feels weird. It feels archaic. It feels like you shouldn't have to do that. So again, Tesla definitely didn't have to do that, but just the way you can drive it like a smaller car and really point the nose, I don't know. It's definitely underrated. All right. Next feature, bulletproof stainless steel. Overrated or underrated? I'm going with, you probably saw this one coming, I'm going with overrated. Now look, first of all, I get it. Obviously having a very durable truck is super useful, of course. But bulletproof up to 9mm rounds? Yeah, I'm not going to test that, but there are some other YouTubers out there who totally will, and apparently it can literally stop smaller rounds without being punctured. But also, the glass windows aren't bulletproof. They're more of just stronger than regular glass. And then it's regular wheels, regular tires that can still get slashed. So don't go getting any ideas that this thing is invincible or anything like that. But clearly, cold-rolled stainless steel alloy is going to be much stronger than the regular outside of a vehicle. So that's the shopping cart in the back of the parking lot. That's fender benders. Or if someone hits you, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. But guess what? It also means your truck is now made of an extremely fingerprinty material, and it also doesn't have normal door handles, so you just cannot keep it clean if you use this thing daily. And then steel just happens to be really hard to manipulate. Apparently Tesla had to create new machines strong enough to stamp this material together. There's a reason why there aren't a bunch of other cars rolling around looking like this. So when I say in the autofocus review that low-VIN Cybertrucks will have low-VIN production issues, that's not actually new to Tesla. They've had to spin up manufacturing for different types of vehicles before, and usually the first few thousand of them aren't pretty. But then they learn from those issues, and then 1 or 2 years down the road, they're making millions of the thing, and they're much better quality control. So this particular Cybertruck is the dual motor, all-wheel drive. This was borrowed from Ridge. Shout out to Ridge, by the way. I'll leave a link below if you aren't caught up on my partnership with them. But on delivery, this one had a pretty big panel gap on the driver's side door. And, I never really care about panel gaps, but this one in particular actually started growing and getting worse. It literally looked like the door was open, and then it started making weird noises while closing, until one day it actually broke. So it turns out it wasn't a panel gap, it was actually a manufacturing issue where the bolts that hold this latch in place were actually not torqued tight enough, and they loosened over time and it fell out. And so Miles actually had the bright idea to just gaff tape the latch securely back in place, and now when you close the door, lines up perfectly. So Elon Musk addressed this on Twitter after my video. Apparently, only 15 trucks had this issue, so lucky me, I guess. So if you are one of the few, then you can apparently just take this to a Tesla service center and they'll be able to fix it in no time as long as you get an appointment. The Cyber Beast that I took delivery of under my name has been flawless so far. But I think the point I'm trying to make is these early Cybertrucks, as with any other early Tesla, they're going to find, I guarantee you, more issues like this, and they'll work on them and fix them. But yeah, this Foundation Series badge right here, it's kind of clouded in the Tesla community because it basically means you got one of the first few. But it also kind of means willing beta tester in a way. So, these materials and this new stamping technique and all this should eventually make the vehicles much easier to produce in mass and cheaper. But that's eventually. Eventually. All right, next feature, truck stuff. I'm talking about the theoretical reasons why someone would logically buy a truck over any other vehicle, like a van or an SUV or a car. And that would be for towing, hauling, and off-roading. And I know it looks like this truck would be amazing at all of that stuff, but I'm gonna say that this one, it's overrated. It's overrated here, and I'll tell you why. Now, don't get me wrong, this Cybertruck, very capable. It's much more capable than any other Tesla, obviously. I can confirm it handles winter weather really well, like it has a heated windshield wiper and the heated mirrors, and the door can in fact open in icy weather. They added a wade mode that lifts the suspension all the way up and pressurizes the battery so that you can drive through really deep water. It's insane. And it also has off-road driving modes and towing modes right here in the settings. There's also only one wheel and tire option right now with Cybertruck. Every single Cybertruck ships with the same Goodyear Territory Wrangler RT tire, whatever. It's a pretty popular tire, and they ship them on, Jeep Grand Cherokees and F-150s all the time. And it's reinforced and it's capable of some light off-roading, but I think if we're being honest, most people will be driving this thing mostly on the street, like a glorified SUV. So here's a number to think about. 63. 63 is the percent of truck drivers who admit to rarely or never towing anything at all. And that's just the ones that admit it. Like, look at this chart. This is from a survey of F-150 owners, so the most popular truck in the country. People are almost never actually towing with these things. So before you leave a comment that this thing sucks for towing, yeah, they know. We know. Everyone buying it kind of should already know. If you're buying a truck specifically for towing, then you have a short list of trucks you're considering and none of them are electric. But I think my main realization with this thing is there are millions of pre-orders for this thing right now. Because it's Tesla, it's going to be very popular. This is going to be a lot of people's first truck. And it will come with all of the first truck realizations. Like, to a lot of people, the Cybertruck looks absolutely huge, but it's actually smaller than an F-150. And these people, when they get the truck, they'll think they're invincible and they can drive off-road and just go wherever they want without even thinking about strategically going certain routes or airing down the tires that literally come at 50 PSI from the factory. They're gonna start getting stuck in all sorts of embarrassing situations, which means, of course, then there will be countless articles written about them because, of course, no other truck has ever been stuck in the snow before. And it's just, sorry, I'm definitely getting ahead of myself, but look, we will be using a Cybertruck at our video production studio for a lot of the same reasons that we've used an R1T. It's got a tow hitch, it's spacious, it hauls a lot of gear, it's quick, it's quiet, it's great. But I think the point I'm trying to make is most of the millions of people who will end up with these Cybertrucks eventually are going to use them on the street, just like a glorified SUV, just because they think this one looks cool. And that's fine. All right, next category, performance. Overrated or underrated? Well, you might have seen this little video that Tesla did on their YouTube channel, racing the Cybertruck against a Porsche 911 while towing a 911 and beating that 911. And that was a very clever video. It's an ad, of course, but it also takes advantage of the fact that EVs all have this commoditization of this enormous straight line performance, great acceleration. Anyone can get it, but I'd normally never compare a pickup truck to a sports car, right? But while we're here, So, like most drag races, this one was just for fun. But while we had some time at this drag strip, we did a bunch of these. We did back-to-back-to-back races, and it shed a lot of light on Tesla's video and on the Cybertruck in general. So first of all, EVs are quick, right? We've known this for years. Ludicrous mode, then plaid mode, beast mode. This is not new information, but cars with gears can be faster. So there's a difference between quick and fast. So when you go to a real drag strip with timing equipment and all that stuff, you get one of these after. There's a time slip, breaks down in both lanes, not just the end of the quarter mile, but multiple points along the race. And so I've expanded it here. So this was the triple motor Cybertruck's best run, one of the first runs. It runs a 10.9 second quarter mile, which, if you don't know, is absolutely ridiculous. There are bona fide sports cars that don't run in the 10s, and for a 7,000-pound pickup truck to do it on all-terrain tires is just kinda hilarious. But when you actually look at and break down each of these times, this shows the difference between quick and fast. So first of all, off the launch, just from 0 miles an hour, the Cyberbeast with its triple motors and with its 1,000 hertz traction control, managing the slip at the rear wheels basically in real time, is able to explode off the line through the first 60 feet of the race faster than the 911 Turbo S, one of the fastest launching cars ever made. Now from there, it holds that lead, continues putting down all of this power all the way out to 330 feet. So you can see that at 330 feet, 4.4 versus 4.5, it's still out ahead. But by the time you get to 660 feet, which is roughly halfway through the race, that's when the 911 has changed gears twice and continues to pull, and this is when it shifts and passes the truck around halfway through the race. Physics just takes over, and the lighter car with many more gears continues to shift. It passes the truck. Crazy enough, the Cybertruck hits its 114 mile an hour electronically limited top speed, probably because of the tires, well before the end of the quarter mile, while the car continues to pull into the 140s. No, it's not stock. Now, Tesla made this video that I talked about, and they wanted to showcase the Cyberbeast against a Porsche 911, and they know all of this, so they had to get clever, I'll say. So if you haven't seen it, I'll link it below. Their video shows the Cybertruck pulling up to the line, it's racing a Porsche 911, it beats the 911 in a drag race, and then it's revealed that it was towing a 911 the whole time. So they're saying you can beat one while towing one, and then it flashes the quarter mile time on the screen, 11 seconds. So first of all, there's about 50 different models and variations of the Porsche 911. So just based on what we saw and from the performance in the video, I'm gonna guess that they went with the cheapest and slowest possible 911. So that would be the 911 Carrera T. It's a manual transmission. It does 0 to 60 in around 4.3 seconds. So now the Cybertruck with its 2.6 second 0 to 60 has a massive advantage, and so they're able to handicap it by having it tow the 911 like 3,000 pounds. Okay, so then they run the race, and if you watch the video, they run it out to this yellow mark right here, which it turns out is actually the halfway point of the drag strip. So shout out to Engineering Explained for doing the math on this one. I'll leave the video below, but it turns out the Carrera T, thanks to its gearbox, is still eventually faster than a Cybertruck, especially if it's towing 3,000 pounds. But it's really an 1/8 mile race that they're showcasing here, and then they quote the quarter mile time at the end as if they ran a quarter mile race. But as we've learned today, quick, fast. People will point out that difference, but I'll let it slide. It's just a drag race, it's fun, it's not that huge of a deal. But I will say, if you can, from stoplight to stoplight, be just as quick as basically any other car in a 7,000-pound truck, that's incredible. That's hilarious. That's really fun. But hopefully at least now you understand why I'm saying performance is a bit overrated. It's more of a one-trick pony in a straight line. Now that one trick is very fun and very appealing to certain people. There are people every day who pick the F-150 Raptor over the F-150 for stuff like this. But, then you get to a turn and it's a truck again. But also, one more thing I just want to highlight. Again, in our best run, we got 10.995 seconds in the Cybertruck. Is this the fastest? Is this the world record for fastest Cybertruck quarter mile? I haven't seen any faster, so let me know if you do. But shout out to Miles, the driver mod. I think we might have a world record here. All right, the 800-volt architecture and the 48-volt low voltage system, both new to the Cybertruck. I'm going underrated, if only for the fun fact that this is technically the lightest fully electric pickup truck in the world. which is not the highest bar to clear. But yes, thanks to the lesser wire weight, it is lighter than the Hummer EV. It's also lighter than the F-150 Lightning, and it is lighter than the dramatically smaller Rivian R1T. So that's an accomplishment. I was also hoping it would charge like just as fast or faster than other Teslas, but it seems right in line, 250 kilowatts at V3 superchargers for about the first third of the curve. It looks like less as far as miles per hour that you're adding to the battery, but that's including driving efficiency, which is, thanks to the aerodynamics of a refrigerator, not great. Now, I also want to give a shout out specifically to the suspension, just the suspension on the Cybertruck, which I think is underrated. First of all, there's a huge amount of travel between the lowest and firmest and the highest and softest settings. And no one's going to say this thing drives like a sports car, but it is pretty impressively low and firm in its lowest setting. And it's very high, and it can move between those low and high settings really quickly. And I was also very impressed by how little roll and yaw there was. Typically a big truck, you hit accelerate, and the nose comes up a lot. This one goes up a little. Not bad. But then also, we got to talk about, just for a second, Tesla's minimalism, because it's a kind of a staple of Teslas at this point, especially with the Cybertruck here, with the design, but also on the inside and with materials and the choices they make. I think a lot of us would agree that a physical button, in a lot of ways, is better than a digital button. I don't think that's a hot take. But one of the reasons Tesla's been so successful business-wise over the past couple of years in such a competitive market is because they figured out a way to make a profit on every vehicle, and they minimize all of the extra pieces, all of the moving parts, and they've gotten rid of a lot of buttons. Actually, they've gotten rid of basically every button in the Cybertruck. But because of Tesla's success, I feel like auto manufacturers have started to copy a lot of what Tesla does to the detriment of some of their vehicles. I would have liked to have seen in the Cybertruck, this big special vehicle, maybe a cool key fob that has access to a button to open the front trunk, or maybe real climate control buttons, or maybe we all know they should have done a mirror that's actually a screen so you could see out the back of the truck without looking down at the screen, but they didn't do that. So I'm saying Tesla's minimalism kind of overrated here. But I also do need you to know that despite all the other interesting technical stuff that I've talked about in this video, this is still a Tesla under the hood, and all of the things that we love about that and all the other stuff that comes with it. That means it works with Tesla superchargers all over the country. That also means it has a super heavy 123 kilowatt hour battery in the floor. It means that the quiet interior of the vehicle makes the speaker system sound way better than it probably should. And it also means a bunch of things are missing about these early trucks as they deliver them. The super heavy additional range extender battery in the back isn't shipping yet, and nobody knows when it will. The screen also has no CarPlay or Android Auto, but the software is really good and super fast. But there's also no autopilot right now, even if you paid for it. No light bar right now, even if you paid for it. No aero caps right now, and you did pay for those. The locking differential at the rear axle doesn't work in the dual motor version of this truck yet, and there's only one tire option for a truck. All of these are decisions that Tesla makes knowing the priorities of the probable buyers, the millions of pre-orders of the Cybertruck. They know what people are probably going to do with these, they know what people think they're going to do with these, and they know what people want when they buy one of these things. It's a Tesla under the hood. So I was driving to the studio the other day, and on my way there, I'm coming up over this hill, and on the other side of the hill is this biker across the street. And as I came over the hill, he looked up and he saw the truck for about 2 seconds, and then he reached out and he just did this as he biked past me. But later that same night, I was on my way home from practice around the bridge somewhere in New York City at night, and slowing down in traffic, this car pulls up next to me, kind of in front of me, and all 4 of the windows roll down, and these super happy faces all stick out and just like give me thumbs up, and they're grinning the entire time. And I'd say that's about the ratio of joy to absolute disgust that you bring into the world driving the Cybertruck around. It's probably like 80-20. So what's the verdict with the Cybertruck, right? I think there's a lot going on between those 4 corners, a lot of interesting choices and materials and technologies and steer-by-wire and 800-volt systems and all this stuff. But a lot of it, frankly, is overshadowed by the design again. So we keep coming back to the design. And I feel like we can use that word again, iconic. I would say as a product person, I do think this is already an iconic design. Now that comes with a lot of baggage. I feel like when you say that word, it's kind of like joining the rare air of like the bedroom poster of on some kid's wall. It's like the Lamborghini Countach or the Bugatti Veyron or something like a Tesla Cybertruck. But the thing about those iconic cars is they're also almost always rare. And that's the thing. It's like if you saw a Bugatti Veyron on the street, that's probably the only Bugatti Veyron you're going to see on the street for a long time. There's not that many Lamborghini Countaches out on the world. Now, the Cybertruck today is super rare. And there's all these articles about, celebrities driving them around. And when you see one, it's an event. That's why people are reacting the way they are. It's probably because it's the first time they're ever seeing one. But the Cybertruck is slotted to be mass produced. So I feel like this actually has to wear off after a while. Like obviously it hits different seeing your 10th or 50th or 100th Cybertruck of the day, right? So how does that match up? I think there's like 2 million plus pre-orders of the Cybertruck and more coming. There were only ever about 2,000 Lamborghini Countaches ever made. There was less than 500 Bugatti Veyrons ever made. So it's kind of hard to find a comp for a vehicle that starts off its life as iconic, but then is mass produced. And there was this really interesting comment on the autofocus video I made about this truck on owning the PT Cruiser when it first came out. And I wasn't really old enough to remember this, so I'm purely taking their word for it, but apparently it was a crazy enough design that it got a lot of attention when it first started being made. It's a weird shape, had some odd material choices and all that, but eventually Chrysler made over 1 million PT Cruisers. But now we know exactly how cool the PT Cruiser is. It gets humanized more and more the more you see them on the road. You see them get in accidents and have to maneuver through traffic, and they're just regular people and regular cars, and they're everywhere. And I guess the question is that the